Hello. Today we are going to talk about the plant-based breakthrough guide, and we will take just a few moments to walk through it so you know what you're looking at, what to expect, what to focus on, what to avoid, and of course, as always, feel free to ask questions in the Facebook group and we can discuss them there or in one of the upcoming webinars. Okay, so just let me share my screen with you here. All right. There we go. So here is the plant-based breakthrough guide. You should all have a copy of this. And this is kind of our guideline to give us direction as we go through the program. It's not set in stone, of course, but I've created this so that you can have something that you can look at and remind you what you're supposed to be focused on, what you're supposed to stay away from. It's really based on which foods are the healthiest for you, are the most nutritious, and which will support and benefit you the most overall. So let's quickly go through. And as you can see here, I've specifically wrote that this is sort of a choose your own adventure style program where we focus on plant-based whole foods, nutrition, and wellness. And that's exactly what this is. There aren't really any specific set in stone rules that you have to follow. And really, as I say here, your level of commitment is entirely up to you, but will determine your ultimate success in the program. So depending on your goals, if it's weight loss, if it's more energy, if it's to eat more plants, whatever that is, how much you put into the program is how much you'll get out of it. So just keep that in mind as we go through. And let's get going here. So the daily to-dos. We're going to go more into depth into all of these as we scroll down to the next couple pages. But just for you to think of and have this in the front of your mind is that each day we really want to focus on our number one priority is actually water. So you want to aim to consume approximately 2 to 3 liters per day. If you're nowhere near there now, that doesn't necessarily need to be your goal, but maybe aim for 1 liter a day and then slowly build up over time. But really, water consumption is so important as we go through the program. And I'm going to continue to talk to you more and more about that. But the main thing is that if you're eating more plants, you're eating more fiber, and that does mean that you need more water to help move all that good fiber through your body. So water, it's the big one. Focus on that. Of course, this is a plant-based breakthrough. It's a program focused on plant-based foods. So naturally, vegetables and fruits are high on the priority list. And I really want you guys to be eating them to your heart's content. And I have highlighted my favorite vegetables, cruciferous vegetables, and leafy greens. So these are ones that I see people not eating enough of, and we're going to touch on those a little bit below. But you want to aim for 1 serving. So that's about 1 cup or more a day. And I'll talk to you more about those in a few minutes. So whole grains, this will be different for everybody where I say 3 servings. If you're a smaller person, you may need to eat less than somebody who's larger and more active. If you're an extremely active, fit person and you're cycling and running and doing all sorts of movement throughout the day, you're going to want to consume more because these are your great energy foods. Plant-based proteins. So generally what I strive to do each day is to have a meal that would contain a plant-based protein, and we'll talk about those a little bit more below. But here I say consume moderate to high plant-based proteins at each meal. So even if that just means in your breakfast oats, you've got some hemp hearts or some chia seeds. Maybe in your lunch on your salad, you have some chickpeas. And in your dinner, maybe you're having a lentil bolognese sauce on pasta. So the lentils would be the protein there, the chickpeas and the hemp hearts and the chia seeds. So those sort of foods, you want to see them appearing throughout the day. You don't necessarily need to add a lot of them in each meal, but just kind of thinking how can you add in some plant-based proteins to each meal. So our nuts and seeds, I just say a handful of your favorite variety. Generally, as we'll see below, it's all about the raw and unsalted if you can go for that. Nuts and seeds are very healthy for you and a great way to get in a whole foods form of fat. And herbs and spices, these are just amazing foods. So we really want to start playing around with those and learning how to use those. This is one of the things I find with plant-based foods is that when you start eating more plant-based, herbs and spices tend to play a really great role in your life. I personally have learned so much more about herbs and spices and how to use them since eating more plant-based foods. And of course, you want to enjoy this process. Remember that this is fun, you're learning, and you're doing this to create more delicious, more well-balanced meals. You are enhancing your health, you're enhancing your knowledge of food. All of this is great stuff, and all of this is going to hopefully make cooking and eating more fun and more enjoyable. All right, so this is really the main section here that I want you to be thinking about. It's the foods and drinks to focus on. So again, back to that water, it's the first one here. Of course, it's vital to your health. We need water. It's important down to the cellular level. So really keep drinking water. And it's, of course, one of your challenges throughout the program. So remember to keep getting that in. So if you do anything and it's just drinking more water, I would be really proud of you for that. And unlimited vegetables and fruits. As I said before, eat to your heart's content. One thing I do want you guys to think about is that vegetables tend to be the thing that's lacking for people. So if you can really focus on vegetables first, almost as vegetables are the lead actor in this movie called Plant-Based Breakthrough, and fruits are the supporting actor. So fruits are much easier to kind of get into your diet because often they're very portable. You can just pop them in your mouth. So if it's grapes or apples or oranges, they're really easy to access and eat. You just remove the peel and you're ready to go. Vegetables do take a little bit more work. And because of that, I really try to encourage you to ensure that your vegetable intake is high and really focus on that as sort of your priority or your goal. Just something to think about as we're going forward. So there again are cruciferous vegetables and leafy greens. So we're talking kale, collards, arugula, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, bok choy, and many more. I will be posting information about that in our Facebook group, and we can talk more about these in the webinars going forward. But these are something that I want you guys to think about because these foods are really our huge bang for our buck, super nutritious foods that most people aren't eating enough of. And by the end of this program, hopefully you will be eating more of these if you aren't already eating lots. So now this is part of our plant-based proteins is our pulses and legumes. So chickpeas, beans, lentils, split peas, edamame, which is a young soybean, organic soy milk, organic tofu, and tempeh. So these are our high protein plant-based foods. I really try to get at least one big serving a day of something like a chickpeas or beans or lentils or tofu. One of my meals generally includes plant-based protein, a high protein plant-based food. So that's something you'll see. And if you are making the meals throughout the program, you'll have no trouble doing that. And our whole grains, pseudo seeds, and pastas. So brown rice noodles, wild rice, buckwheat, groutes. If you've ever seen buckwheat before, it's actually, I use it in cereals and breakfast. It's a really nice gluten-free pseudo seed, which people use as a breakfast option. It's also made into noodles, buckwheat noodles, which are used a lot in Asian dishes, and I just love them. So it's a great gluten-free option for those of you that are sensitive or intolerant to gluten. Of course, our old-fashioned rolled oats. I say that, and you'll notice I say not instant oats. We really want to focus on the old-fashioned oats or rolled oats because they have more protein and fiber than you'll find in instant oats. They take a couple minutes longer to cook, but they're definitely worth it. Steel cut oats as well. They're going to take even longer than regular oats to cook, but also a little bit higher in protein and fiber. Spelt noodles, millet, sorghum, quinoa noodles, and amaranth. These are just a variety of different whole grains, pasta, or pseudo seeds and pastas. These sort of things will appear throughout the program. And if not, I'm going to share recipes with you guys. And if you have any questions about that, of course, feel free to ask me. And again, most of these are going to contain plant-based proteins. To be fair, all food that we do eat does contain proteins. Some is just going to have higher counts of amino acids. Next up is our nuts and seeds. I love snacking on just regular nuts and seeds. So things like Brazil nuts, walnuts, sunflower seeds, and sesame seeds. I generally sprinkle those on top of a dish I could be making. Hemp hearts, chia seeds, flax seeds, cashews. I love nut and seed butters. Almond milk is something I love actually making homemade. So all this sort of stuff. So really focusing on our nuts and seeds and having them as snacks or using them as parts of our meals. Things like tahini, which is a sesame seed paste. It's basically the base of hummus. So if you've never heard of tahini before, but you've eaten hummus, you've definitely eaten tahini. So these are things we're going to focus on. Probiotic-rich foods, our sauerkraut, our kimchi, lacto-fermented veggies, and miso. If you haven't heard of probiotic-rich foods before, stay tuned. We will be talking about them more later in the program. I'm sure you've heard of sauerkraut, kimchi, maybe not, lacto-fermented veggies, maybe still elusive. We will learn more about these as we go on. So fats, extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, flax oil, avocado oil. Fats won't play as big a role in the program. I usually think of these sort of fats in terms of oils. So nuts and seeds would actually be considered a fatty food, but they're in the whole foods form. Whereas these sort of fats like olive oil, coconut oil, flax oil, these would be actually processed oils, slightly processed, because they are taken, say, an olive is transferred into becoming an oil, whereas a coconut doesn't start out as coconut oil, it starts as a coconut. But things like avocados and olives, these are more of a whole food version of fats. So we'll be talking more about this, but it depends on, you know, where you are with your diet and what your goals are and what your focuses are, how much of this will you consume, and everybody's kind of has a different threshold for fats. So that's something we'll figure out as we go along. Herbs and spices, fresh or dried. I mean, I love ginger, turmeric, chili spice, cinnamon, parsley, oregano, dill. These are just a few of them that I like, and I'd love for you guys to incorporate spices as much as you can. Herbal teas and green teas, a great way to consume more water, also to get in more herbs and spices that way through teas. Some of you may have heard of kombucha. So kombucha is an effervescent, fermented, probiotic-rich tea. It's very popular these days. I like it. It's a great alternative to wine. I don't drink it all the time, but it's kind of a fun thing to have here and there. All right, so we can talk more about that too, by the way. Ask me any questions you want in the Facebook group. Let's see here, foods and drinks you may choose to avoid. So I'm adding this category in because it depends on, again, what your goals are. Everybody who's doing this program has different objectives, different goals, and caffeine is the first one. So you see coffee in brackets there. This isn't for everybody. I myself have actually stopped drinking caffeinated coffee quite some time ago. I'm a really high energy person, and the additional caffeine, along with my already very energetic self, wasn't as productive or good for me, whereas some people do really well with coffee. So this is something you may want to explore for yourself. Maybe just try having 1 cup per day, or maybe try periodically swapping out that 1 cup and have a green tea or herbal tea instead and see how you feel. If you are drinking lots of coffee, that transition might be difficult because coffee can be pretty addictive. Something for you to think about. So depending on your goals, that may be one. Maybe it's to eliminate caffeine and see how you do. Of course, so alcohol is listed here. Anytime you're trying to achieve any health or wellness goals, alcohol is among the first things that people are scrapping. So we know that it is a toxin to the liver. However, sometimes it is nice to have a glass of wine with friends, to cook, cook and have your glass of wine together, those sort of things, or having a beer at a brewery. I love all those things too. It just does depend on what your goal is. Like if it is a weight loss goal, eliminating or drastically reducing alcohol can be very effective. Also, if you have issues with sleeping, or issues with anxiety or depression, those sort of things, removing alcohol can actually be a really great thing for you. So again, this is very dependent on your goal. If you're just here, just wanting to eat more plants, don't worry about it. But if you have specific, very focused health goals, maybe alcohol is something that you'll scrap. So dairy and or animal products. Now, of course, we know this is a plant-based breakthrough program. Most of you are here for the fact that you are adding more plants. It doesn't mean that necessarily everybody doing the program is eliminating all animal products. But if you aren't already vegetarian or vegan, I encourage you to try a few days a week, or maybe you go without meat altogether or without eggs or dairy and see how you do. You might notice some really great positive effects. I myself have really, really benefited from removing dairy altogether. I saw lots of long-term health ailments go away. So something for you to think about. And if you're just here treading the water and learning about plant-based eating, that's awesome too. Maybe just adding in a few of the meals that I provide a week, that's a great success there as well. I've added gluten to this list because I do know a lot of people who are gluten sensitive or celiac or gluten intolerant. I myself have no issues with gluten. I tend to eat lots of whole foods and plant-based, so I don't eat a lot of gluten just based on that mere fact that I'm eating so many whole foods. But I love a good sourdough bread made with spelt or whole wheat. But for those of you that have these intolerances or that, or celiac, of course, do not consume gluten if that's an issue for you. So stay away from that. You're going to notice you'll feel much better if you're taking gluten out, if it's a sensitivity for you. So meat alternatives, I wanted to include this in because, of course, Beyond Meat and other meat alternatives are everywhere these days. And I think they're a really nice to have, but not essential as part of a plant-based diet. So when we're talking about whole foods, plant-based, Beyond Meat and those, I'm trying to think of the other brand names, but Beyond Meat's kind of the big one. Any of these processed plant-based veggie burgers, they are fun to have. I'm the type, I'd bring them to a barbecue or have them once in a while, but it's not a staple in my diet. I tend to focus more on the You know, these sort of things for my protein, pulses and legumes, whole grains, pseudo seeds, pastas. There's just, and even nuts and seeds, you're getting so much healthy whole foods proteins that way. But of course, you can still go for your Beyond Meat burger. They're especially great when you're like on a road trip and there's nowhere to eat. Here in Canada, we can stop at an A&W and grab one. Of course, it's not an everyday thing, but sometimes you got to eat, and a Beyond Burger can fill that hunger when you are on the road. And then oils too. So as I was mentioning just above, depending on what your motivations are, your current health status, oils may or may not play a role in your diet. Some people are even restricting fat for various health conditions. However, most of us are okay to be eating especially whole foods fats like nuts, seeds, olives, avocados, whereas others may be avoiding those altogether and avoiding oils completely. So it really depends on your health status and where you're at. Okay, so things to consume in moderation. This is just my recommendations to you. Refined grains, bread, pastas, and wraps. Again, thinking of whole foods again, most of these things don't really fall into the whole foods category. However, when I am consuming breads, good brands to look for are Food for Life. They have really nice sprouted breads and wraps. Here in Ontario and throughout Canada, you can get Little Stream Bakery. This is one of my absolute favorite sourdough bread bakeries, a really healthy way to consume bread. When I'm not making my own sourdough, Little Stream Bakery is the bread that I go for. And this is definitely not a sponsored endorsement. I just love their products, and I actually know that they mill all their own flours and they make all of their breads in Perth, Ontario, using really high quality ingredients. And I'm sure wherever you live, you can find a similar bakery. So if you're not in Canada and doing this, there's probably a really great local sourdough bakery that you can tap into there as well. So if you're going to enjoy bread, get the good stuff. Tastes better, it's healthier for you. So why not? And just a little tip that I mentioned here, you know, if you're looking to reduce consumption of bread, maybe trying something like a rice paper wrap instead of a wheat wrap, or even colored green leaves can actually make a nice wrap for, you can put your veggies and hummus in there and have almost like it's a really healthy way to have a wrap. And you're consuming more greens too, so that's a good thing. Up next, so animal proteins, again, as I mentioned before, you may or may not be consuming these depending on your goals, but I definitely want you to consider that regardless of what your goal is here, if you're coming in here and you are somebody who does consume animal proteins, really try to think of reducing them and seeing how much you can go with plants and see how you feel. I think that's going to be very telling. You'll see lots of great changes. So again, animal proteins and dairy products, you may consume them in moderation. If you're going to eat animal products, maybe you're going to look for higher quality stuff like organic free-range eggs or chicken from a local farmer. I would recommend sticking to no more than 1 egg per day and a palm-sized serving of animal proteins 1 to 2 times per week. So palm size, not very big, but that's kind of the way to maintain better health, is to consume less animal proteins. So try it out and see how you do. And dairy products as well. You're going to want to look, if you are consuming dairy, seek out organic and fermented dairy products like a Greek yogurt, raw cheeses, and kefir. These are not as easy to come by, and I don't have the greatest access to those. Like, I couldn't tell you where to find them because I don't consume it myself, but you might be able to find these things at a local farmer's market or tap into your local health food store for that. But again, see if you can reduce dairy products and see how you feel. Like I said, I had great results and I feel a lot better removing dairy products from my diet, so something you might try. All right, up next is our sweeteners. So being mindful of how much sugar you're consuming. Again, for those of you with goals of weight loss, more energy, more focus, it's just removing sugars is always going to help for me. So I would generally stick to a sweetener like maple syrup. Occasionally I'll use a little bit of stevia in things that I'm doing. And I mean, if you have local honey, that's a nice way to go for a bit of sweetener, but really try to keep it down to about 1 tablespoon per day if you're actually measuring. I highly recommend reducing the sugar in your diet and upping the your intake of plants. You're going to see lots of benefits from doing that. So try to stick to that as closely as you can. Again, optional, but this is something that I really encourage you to consume in moderation, just for overall health and best results in the program. So finally, this is all really obvious stuff. You guys know this. Foods and drinks to avoid. So refined and processed foods. So avoid that refined sugar, chocolate bars, candies, salad dressings. They often have a lot of sugar added in store-bought salad dressings, packaged sweets, sodas, donuts. You guys know this. Fried foods too. These are going to contain just a lot of heated oils. So usually when food is being deep fried at restaurants, the oil is heated and then foods are dunked into it and basically creating trans fats. So you want to watch out for that stuff. So that's things like your chicken wings, chicken fingers, fish sticks, sweet potato fries, French fries, all that stuff. White flour. So when you're going for baked goods, try to watch out for the white flours, especially when you're going for sort of health and wellness. I try to use alternative flours like oat flour, and I love spelt flour. Now, again, flours are still, they are not considered a whole food per se, but I do think we can enjoy treats from time to time. And even if you want to have a cake with regular icing that's not healthy, not healthified at all, if you're having a birthday party, go for it. It's just about avoiding these things on a daily basis so you're not eating this delicious, amazing cake every day, because when you stop doing that, you actually find things like apples and oranges to taste super delicious because your palate is adjusted away from eating very, very sweet and refined things. Hydrogenated oils and trans fats, so stuff like Crisco, margarine. Also, most packaged foods are going to contain hydrogenated oils and trans fats. These are extremely inflammatory, definitely add no value to our health, so some things to stay away from. Fast food and takeout restaurants. This is probably obvious to you guys, but I just have a list there, and depending on where you live, there's probably a wide variety of other fast food chains. So trying to cook for yourself as much as possible. It's a real predictor of health. When you're cooking more for yourself, you're going to be eating healthier. That's just how it is. So watching out for those things. From time to time, it's okay. And we're even going to talk about eating at restaurants throughout or later on in the program. So we'll get to that. But yeah, just start cooking for yourself. Make really healthy foods at home and you're not going to want to eat out as much. Junk foods are chip, pretzels, Kraft dinner, all that stuff. And microwave dinners. These are something that are loaded with sodium, not much nutritional value. So you're going to want to watch out for those too. But again, try not to think about the things you're avoiding. Just really focus on this list up here. Foods and drinks to focus on. Think about how you can get more of these in your diet. Don't worry about eliminating the other things. Just up the good stuff, and the bad stuff kind of slips away. Not that foods are necessarily good or bad, but when you're eating more healthful, nutritious, nutrient-dense foods, you almost tend to be inclined towards more and more of those. So you'll see as you go along, things will change, your palate will change, your habits will change, and you'll just be making choices that are better for yourself, and you'll be enjoying it too, hopefully. I think that's it for now. So we will be in touch soon on the Facebook page. I'll be in touch with you guys regularly. Have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed this little talk about our plant-based breakthrough guide. Bye.